very glad to have the early birds here. And I don't know if this is more to secure a good seat or this is actually to listen to us. So I'll try to keep it short. Of course, I'm Shaguna Gehlot and I'm part of the festival team. And we come up with this festival every year, try to bring you some good storytellers. And this is an edition I think we did last year when I think IGNCA, Mrs. Mangalam, and we were sitting and we said there has to be more than just storytelling. And in fact, this year we've got far more than storytelling. Every day we have a warm-up session like this. And we have a panel discussion today. But tomorrow we have an open mic session where we want you people to come and participate and share your stories. And I think the final day we'll have these storytellers share their experiences and just give you some tips if you require, or you can give them some of your tips, you know, how you can perform better as well. So let me start by actually asking you all to introduce yourself with maybe 2 lines or something. So I can start with Emily, who's from UK, of course, and I'm sure some of you must have seen her last year as well perform here. Emily?
Wow, as a storyteller, to introduce yourself in 2 lines, there's a challenge. My name is Emily. Last year I was Emily Parish, and then I got married, and now I'm Emily Hennessy. But I'm still pretty much the same person. And yeah, I live in the UK, but I'm half Swedish and a little bit Indian on the inside.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Tim Ralphs. I'm a storyteller. It's my first time visiting India, and it's wonderfully exciting. It's fabulous to be here. I'm really pleased. I tell almost entirely traditional stories, so folk tales, fairy tales, myths and legends that have been told for a long time, maybe been written down in books that I then find and try and bring back to life in my work.
I'm Mangalam Swaminathan. I'm the program director at IGNCA, and I'm here because I love listening to stories. I'm not a storyteller, so I'm the odd one out here.
You'll be one tomorrow, won't you, Mangala?
मेरा नाम पूरन भाट है. मैं कठपुतली वाला हूँ, राजस्थान का रहने वाला हूँ. हमारे यहाँ कहानी कहने का जो प्रथा थी वो हमारे कठपुतली के द्वारा हम कहानियाँ कहा करते थे. और पहले दादा दादी से कहानियाँ सुना करते थे, नाना नानी से कहानियाँ सुना करते थे. आजकल वो ज़माना तो रहा नहीं है, लेकिन आज भी कठपुतली के माध्यम से तो हम कहानियाँ बता ही देते हैं लोगों को.
But I wanted to first get your inputs on how you became a storyteller. And maybe you would have something like that kind of an experience of you tell a lot of stories and how do you find them here. So just a little bit of how you came into storytelling and any kind of that kind of encounter that you had across the border or across different countries of a similar story.
Thank you. Well, I came into storytelling, and I apologize to those people in the audience that have already heard me talk about this, but I came into storytelling because my parents really liked festivals when I was growing up. And so as a child, I would go to folk festivals, festivals where traditional arts were being performed. And in the 1980s, there was, in the United Kingdom, a bit of a storytelling revival. A lot of people started to get really excited. They rediscovered, a lot of people, this art form, which in many ways we had lost. There was a time when there were lots of storytellers, and then there was a time when we wrote down all the stories that we could still remember, and then there was a time where it felt like there weren't many of those stories, those old folk stories being told. And then, in the 1980s, a bit before that, there were a group of people that went, we want to do this again. So I was very lucky as a child that I got to kind of catch that first wave, I guess, that was going on in the UK of storytelling picking back up, of people realizing that actually TV was good and all that, but what was even better was sitting in the same room as people, sharing the same air, breathing the same air, and then rediscovering, resharing, reimagining these wonderful stories. So as a child, I caught the storytelling bug. I can remember going back from the festivals and I would kind of sit where my parents were trying to drive and I would get in the way of the gear lever because I had to retell all the stories that I just soaked up over the course of the weekend. And that was it. That was the start for me. When I was a teenager, I started a storytelling club in my school library. Bless the librarians for putting up with me bringing crowds of people in amongst the books, and we shared the stories out loud. And then, that's how it kind of started for me. And it's just kind of grown slowly and gently. I've had a lot of exciting opportunities to visit festivals. I've seen a lot of, I'm still learning. I think one of the beautiful things about being part of an art form like storytelling in the UK that is still in its infancy is that there is so much to learn. There are so many lessons and adventures and everything. Every time we get, like the puppetry that we saw earlier on today was magical, was marvelous. And so from everything, that's it, from mime, from clowning, there's always something that you look at and you go, okay, how is this kind of storytelling working? What is there to learn from this kind of storytelling? And yeah, I think that's sort of the beauty of being a storyteller today.
I also had my first storytelling experience when I was quite young. I was 9 years old, and it was just before Christmas. And at school, they'd organised a Christmas talent competition where everyone got to do a little song or, you know, do a play or something. And so me and my two best friends at the time, Nicola and Charlene, we decided that we were going to put on a little performance. We were going to tell a story about how a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. And it was a very moral tale. And we were very excited, and we'd written a script, and we'd rehearsed, and we all had our lines, and it was great. But the day before the performance, Nicola and Charlene decided they didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And I was absolutely heartbroken, and I went back home sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And my mum actually saved the day. She said, forget about them, do your own performance. And so I decided to tell a Roald Dahl story. You've come across Roald Dahl? Yeah. You might have come across his revolting rhymes. They're fantastic. He's rewritten fairy tales and changed the endings and made them they're brilliant. And they're all in rhyme. And so I told Little Red Riding Hood, which starts, as soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw. I still remember it very well to this day. So I learnt that in one evening. I managed to learn that off by heart. My mum helped me, and she got me. She took out my grandma's hat, which I used for Grandma, and then I had some sheepskin rug that I used to be the wolf or something. All these different props and costumes, and then I did the talent competition, and I got first prize. And my friends were really annoyed. And then they wanted to be friends with me again, of course. So that was my first experience of telling a story. And then I went to university, and I thought I wanted to be an actress. So I was studying drama and theatre studies. And I very quickly became quite disillusioned with the world of theatre and acting and what it means to be a performer. I felt like I wanted to find a way of performing that was personal and live in the moment and had integrity. I was surrounded by a lot of big egos, and I wanted to find something different to that. So I was on the verge of giving up my drama degree, and I think I was going to study environmental social science or something. Decided I wanted to save the planet instead. But then I took a storytelling module with an Indian storyteller called Dr. Vayu Naidu, who was teaching at my university at the time. And she came into the space and she told us a story. And I was absolutely spellbound. There were no props, no costumes, no grandma hats, no sheepskin rugs as the wolf. She told an Indian folk tale. And I can still see the pictures in my mind of that story that she told. And I thought it was such an incredible skill it was magic, actually. It was real magic to conjure up an entire world and invite the audience into that world. I thought was really amazing. And so that's when I was hooked, really. And I went on to do a storytelling apprenticeship with her, telling stories in schools and out on street corners and in refugee centres, every place we could find. Anyone who would listen, or even if they wouldn't listen, we'd tell them stories anyway. And then it went on from there, really. But I was interested in what you were talking about with stories that become cross cultures, that cross continents. And it's something that we find so much. You know, I might find a story that I think is a very British sort of folktale, And then, you know, someone from Japan will say, oh, I know that story. We've just got different names or a slightly different ending or something. And I think these stories are amazing. They tap into something very universal, tap into real universal truths. I'm fascinated by the character of Kali Ma at the moment and all of her many manifestations. And I keep, in every story that I read at the moment, I find something of Kali or Sati or Uma or Durga in these completely different stories from across the world. So again, there's something amazing about those universal characters and universal truths that cross these borders.
Mangalamji, I wanted to come to you because Puran Bhaji came up with something about how, you know, things have changed for the real performers, and something that Tim also mentioned about the revival that was happening in the 1980s in UK. And probably we were just getting used to the TV at that point and Hum Log and, you know, 24-hour television. You run this center. How difficult or how easy it is for you, and what are the changes that you've seen over a period about these art forms, really?
The art forms, I think they're all alive and doing very well in rural areas where they belong. In the city, I think we have got completely distance from them. I mean, I grew up in a very small town, and twice a year we had these storytelling, you know, the Katha sessions. So all my stories of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Panchatantra, whatever we learned, I learned it from them. And a shared audience of about 1,000, 2,000 people living in that world that this man is conjuring up for us. And then after 2.5 hours, we all go home. You know, it's a shared experience that I found missing everywhere. You watch TV, you watch in a very conditioned atmosphere, you're distracted by something, you know. But here is the storytelling session. What I like about this storytelling session is that we're all in another world and we're all together in it, you know, forgetting where we are coming from and where you're going back to. So I think that's what this Kathakar Festival has done to the, you know, the Delhi audience. And I wish more and more people come and participate in this. And when you're not following a book, when you're not anticipating a story, then you let your mind imagine things. Like when Emily and Ralph was speaking, you could see the characters in your mind floating, and you're joining the way. We had about 600 kids in the morning. And I think they had forgotten their tiffin time. They had forgotten they wanted to take a break to go to the washroom. They just forgot everything. And when he was doing his Katputli, they were all rolling with laughter and enjoying it so much. And I think that's what the idea of this Kathakar Festival that we are doing with Nivesh. This is the third year we are doing. And we are trying to get people from various parts of the country and, of course, the world. And there is this little language problem, and we get people from the south to perform. In fact, last year we had somebody from Tamil Nadu, and he was performing with the traditional, what we call Villupattu. But he was able to communicate with the audience. And in between, he broke into English and explained it, and he carried the audience with him very well. So I think that's what the purpose of, to bring people back into not only just children, but the adults who miss that childhood experience of collective story listening. That's what I think we should bring back.
Wonderful, yes. And getting, of course, Puran ji back into the conversation. Puran ji, अभी ये सब लोग अपना बता रहे थे कि ये लोग कैसे स्टोरी टेलिंग में आए. आप तो ऑफ कोर्स बचपन से ही आपने देखा था.
हाँ, मेरा तो ये है कि मैं अपने फादर के साथ रहता था, दादाजी के साथ बेसिकली रहते थे हम, मेरे माता पिता उन्हीं के साथ घूमते थे. तो जिस तरह से उन्होंने कहानियाँ शुरू की है और कहना शुरू किया है, दिखाना कठपुतली के द्वारा शुरू किया है, तो वो जहन में रहता था. लेकिन पैदा मैं मेरी माँ से हुआ, बाप से हुआ, लेकिन रिश्ता जो दादा के साथ था वो उन दोनों के साथ में नहीं था. क्योंकि कहानियाँ ये जो है, जो कहानियाँ कही जाती है, जो दादा नाना दादी नानी जो बच्चों को सुनाती थी कहानियाँ, वो रिश्ते कायम करती थी. और आज भी अगर कोई भी, चाहे ये कहानी बताए या हम कहानी बताएं, आप भी हमारे साथ हो जाएंगे, हम आपके साथ हो जाएंगे, रिश्ता एक कायम हो जाएगा. तो ये रिश्तों को मजबूत करती हैं कहानियाँ, और दिमाग को वो बताती है कि हमारे कल्चर में क्या क्या चीज़ें जुड़ी हुई है और क्या क्या चीज़ें साथ में आती है. क्योंकि कहानियाँ कहना आसान नहीं है. ब्ला 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 दुनिया कह देती है, पढ़ के दुनिया कह देती है कि भैया ये पढ़ा था, ये पढ़ा था, क्योंकि ज़्यादातर कहानी कहने वाले पढ़े लिखे नहीं होते थे पहले, जितना मैंने सोचा है और समझा। हमारे यहाँ तो नहीं होते थे, लेकिन ये है कि दूसरों की ही सुन के अपना माइंड इतना तेज़ होता था कि वो दूसरे दिन उसे कहने को तैयार हो जाते थे कि जो सुना है वो मैं कह सकता हूँ, और वो इतना फिक्स हो जाता कि वो दुनिया को कहने के लायक हो जाते थे और हमेशा कहते रहते थे। तो कहानियाँ कहने के लिए आपको एक कबाड़ी की तरह बनना पड़ता है। आपकी ही ज़बान में शेर भी है, गीदड़ भी है, बंदर भी है, दादी भी है, दादा भी है, नाना भी है, डाकू भी है। आपके कहने के तरीके में ही है वो सारे। आप अलग से कोई कैरेक्टर उठा के दिखाते नहीं कि बंदर आ गया, जैसे स्कूल में बच्चों को पढ़ाया जाता है कि ये पपेट सिखाते हैं कि ये बंदर है, ये शेर है, ये वो है। नहीं, जो कहानियों का तरीका है वो आपके खुद की बॉडी के अंदर होता है, और आप जब तक उस कहानी में खुद नहीं ढल जाते हैं तब तक कहानी कहने वाला भी ठीक नहीं है। कहानी कहे तो उस कहानी को पूरी तरह से उसे महसूस करे कि ये कहानी क्या थी, और उस कहानी को वहाँ तक पहुँचाए जो सुनने वाला उसे यहाँ दर्द हो के हाँ मैंने कुछ सुना। तो हमारे साथ तो ज़िंदगी बीती है, हमारे बाप दादाओं के साथ कहानियाँ सुनते सुनते नानी भी सुनाती थी, दादा भी सुनाते थे। तो जितना टाइम हम दादा और नानी के साथ बिताते थे उतना शायद मम्मी पापा के साथ बिताते थे, क्योंकि वो कहानियाँ हमें अपनी जैसी लगती थी।